The wooden door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit workshop. Inside, a man sat slumped over a half-finished carving, his hands trembling from exhaustion. The once shiny tools were scattered across the table, dulled from overuse and neglect. Outside, faint voices of villagers drifted in through the cracked window. A failure. One scoffed. He's been at it for years, nothing to show for it. In the corner of the room, a boy no older than 14 sat cross-legged on the floor, sketching in silence. His pencil moved swiftly, each stroke giving life to something unseen. He paused, looked up at his father, and asked softly, "Why do their words matter more than what you create?" In the heart of a small, bustling village, where the air carried whispers of gossip more readily than it did the fragrance of blooming flowers, there stood a modest workshop. The workshop, once filled with the sound of chisels meeting wood and the scent of freshly cut timber, now felt hollow. Its owner, Haran, sat hunched over a splintered workbench, his hands idle, his face clouded with self-doubt. Haran had always been known for his skill as a craftsman. In his younger days, villagers admired his intricate wood carvings, believing he could transform even the simplest piece of wood into something extraordinary. But times had changed. Now, when people passed by his shop, they muttered cruel words instead of praise. "He's lost his touch," one woman would say, shaking her head. "Spent years carving dreams, but all he's got are failures," another would scoff. Haran's heart, once brimming with passion, was now weighed down by the burden of their words. Each insult felt like a chisel, carving away at his confidence. He began to believe them. In the corner of the workshop sat his 14-year-old son, Ravi. Unlike his father, Ravi seemed untouched by the world's harsh judgments. The boy would spend hours sketching, his pencil moving across paper with effortless grace. He'd draw scenes from their village, fantastical creatures from his imagination, and designs for wooden carvings he hoped to create one day. Haran often glanced at Ravi with a mix of admiration and bewilderment. How could the boy remain so calm, so unaffected by the same voices that haunted him? Haran assumed Ravi simply didn't care, that he was too young to understand the sting of criticism. But Ravi understood more than his father realized. While Haran let the villagers' words fester in his heart, Ravi heard them too. The difference was that Ravi didn't let their negativity take root. Instead, he used it as fuel, sketching late into the night, and dreaming of a day when his art would silence those who doubted him. Still, Haran couldn't see it. To him, Ravi's silence was indifference. "You should take life more seriously," Haran muttered one evening as he watched Ravi sketch a dragon soaring through the clouds. Ravi didn't look up. "I am serious," he replied calmly, "just in a different way." Haran didn't understand the meaning behind Ravi's words. All he saw was a boy lost in his own world, while he, the father, carried the weight of failure. The morning was crisp and golden, the kind of day that felt hopeful. Yet Haran woke with the same heaviness in his heart. As he prepared his tools for another uninspired attempt at carving, Ravi approached him with a quiet confidence. "Father," he said, holding an envelope in his hand, "I want you to come to my school event today. It's important." Haran frowned, brushing wood dust off his hands. "Why? What does your school have to do with me?" "You'll see," Ravi replied, with a knowing smile. Reluctantly, Haran agreed. He wasn't one for public events, especially in a village where whispers of his failure followed him like a shadow. But there was something in Ravi's tonia, calm determination, that made him curious. Later that afternoon, Haran found himself in a crowded school hall. The walls were adorned with vibrant artwork, each piece more impressive than the last. Parents and villagers moved about, admiring the displays, their voices a hum of excitement. Haran felt out of place, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. "Welcome, everyone," a teacher announced from the stage. "Today, we celebrate the creativity of our students. One student in particular has shown remarkable talent and resilience. He's turned challenges into opportunities and criticism into inspiration. Please welcome Ravi Haran to the stage." Haran's head snapped up. "Ravi? His son?" Ravi walked onto the stage, his sketchbook tucked under his arm. He stood tall, his gaze steady as it scanned the crowd. Haran watched, frozen in his seat, as Ravi began to speak. "I want to share a story," Ravi said. "A story about how criticism can shape us not to break us, but to make us stronger. For a long time, I've listened to voices saying I couldn't succeed, that my art was pointless, that I wasn't good enough." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Haran noticed the village leader, seated near the front, his brow furrowing. "But instead of letting those words bring me down," Ravi continued, "I decided to use them. Every time someone doubted me, I drew. Every time someone said I wasn't capable, I worked harder. And today, I want to thank the person who inspired me the most." Haran felt a lump in his throat. Was Ravi about to mention him? Ravi turned toward the village leader. "Thank you, sir, for being my greatest teacher." A hush fell over the room. The leader's face turned a deep shade of red. Ravi opened his sketchbook and began flipping through the pages, holding each one up for the audience to see. There were breathtaking portraits of the village, intricate designs inspired by Ravi's surroundings, and a piece that depicted a towering mountain with a single figure climbing it, holding a lantern. "This," Ravi said, pointing to the mountain sketch, "is what criticism feels like. It's hard, lonely, and steep. But when you reach the top, you see a view no one else can, and the light you carry, the wisdom you gain, becomes a beacon for others." The room erupted into applause. Haran sat motionless, stunned by his son's courage and insight. Ravi had not only silenced his critics, but had also shown them a better way to view the world. The leader, though initially flustered, stood and clapped along with the crowd. For the first time in years, Haran felt a spark of something he thought he'd lost: hope. The walk home from the school event was unusually quiet. Ravi strode confidently, his sketchbook tucked under his arm, while Haran followed a step behind, lost in thought. His mind replayed Ravi's words. "Criticism is a mountain, hard to climb. But at the top, you see something no one else can." For the first time, Haran saw his own struggles differently. The villager's cruel words were not chains binding him, but stones that could pave his way forward if only he chose to use them. Ravi had climbed his mountain. Now it was Haran's turn. That evening, Haran stepped into his workshop with a renewed sense of purpose. He picked up his chisels, feeling their weight in his hands. It had been months since he'd worked with genuine passion. Slowly, he began to carve. He didn't aim for perfection, nor did he worry about what others might say. Instead, he poured his emotions into the wood, the frustration, the doubt, and now the flicker of hope. Each stroke felt like a small victory, a piece of himself restored. Over the next several weeks, the workshop transformed from a place of silence and defeat to one of creativity and renewal. Ravi often joined his father, sketching beside him, offering encouragement without words. Haran worked tirelessly, experimenting with new designs and techniques. He studied books on craftsmanship, sought inspiration in Ravi's sketches, and even revisited his old carvings to see where he had gone wrong. Then, one day, Haran unveiled a creation unlike anything he'd made before: a magnificent wooden sculpture of a mountain. At its peak stood a lone figure, holding a lantern aloft. The details were breathtaking. Each ridge, each fold of the figure's cloak seemed alive with emotion. Haran hesitated before placing the sculpture outside his shop. Would people mock it? Would they dismiss it, as they had so many times before? Ravi, sensing his father's hesitation, simply smiled and said, "Let it speak for itself." Word spread quickly through the village. Curious onlookers gathered outside the workshop, their whispers no longer filled with scorn, but admiration. "Did you see the mountain? It's incredible. The detail, it's like it's telling a story." Even the village leader, the harshest of critics, stopped by. He stood silently for a long time, examining the sculpture, before turning to Haran. "This," he said, his voice softer than usual, "is your best work yet. You've proven me wrong." The words, though grudging, felt like a balm to Haran's soul. But what mattered more was that he no longer needed anyone's approval. He had climbed his own mountain, and the view from the top was more rewarding than he'd ever imagined. As the last rays of sunlight painted the village in gold, the crowd outside Haran's workshop began to disperse. But the murmurs of admiration lingered, like an echo of something new, a respect Haran had not felt in years. Inside the workshop, Haran and Ravi stood side by side, gazing at the wooden sculpture. It seemed almost alive, the lantern held aloft by the lone figure, casting an imaginary light that symbolized hope and triumph. Haran's voice broke the silence. "I never thought I'd see this day." He turned to Ravi, his face softened with gratitude. "You taught me something I'd forgotten, that our work can speak louder than words, even louder than our doubts." Ravi smiled, but his tone grew serious. "Critics are loud, father, because they're afraid. They fear what they don't understand, and they doubt what they can't do themselves. But when you create something great, something true, your work silences them without a single word." Haran was struck by the wisdom in his son's words. For years, he had let the voices of others drown out his own. Now, he realized that criticism wasn't a force to resist, it was a challenge to rise above. The next day, word of Haran's masterpiece spread beyond the village. Travelers passing through stopped to see the sculpture, and their admiration reignited Haran's reputation as a master craftsman. But more importantly, his story inspired others in the village. A young girl who had once been too afraid to share her poems with others began writing again. A blacksmith who had been mocked for his unconventional designs decided to experiment with new techniques. Even the village leader, humbled by Haran's success, encouraged community members to support one another instead of tearing each other down. Haran, too, continued to grow. With Ravi's help, he expanded his craft, blending his skills with Ravi's designs. Their partnership became a symbol of what could happen when self-belief triumphed over self-doubt. As the days passed, Haran's workshop continued to be a place of inspiration. The wooden mountain sculpture remained a beacon of hope, a testament to what could be achieved through resilience and self-belief. Haran's reputation grew not only as a skilled craftsman, but also as a source of wisdom for his community. One morning, the village leader visited Haran's workshop. His expression was a mixture of reluctance and awe. "Haran," he began, "I've come to apologize." His voice was low, almost gruff, as if the words were difficult to admit. "I didn't think you had it in you. But your work, it's extraordinary. It's changed everything." Haran glanced up from his carving, his eyes steady. "Thank you, sir," he said simply. "But it wasn't just me. It was Ravi's belief, his determination, that showed me the way. He taught me that criticism isn't something to be feared, but something to use." The leader hesitated, then nodded. "I can see that now. Your story, Haran, it's a lesson for us all. To take our knocks and turn them into something beautiful, something that can inspire others." Haran smiled, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. "Criticism is just noise," he said quietly. "It's what you do with it that counts. Transform it into fuel, and let your work speak louder than their words." He looked at Ravi, standing beside him with a proud smile. "Thank you, Ravi, for believing in me, for showing me the way forward." Ravi grinned. "I just showed you what you already knew, Father. Sometimes we just need a little nudge to remember." The leader turned to leave, his face no longer rigid with judgment, but soft with respect. "You've given us all a gift, Haran," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for sharing it." As the leader walked away, the workshop felt lighter, the air electric with possibility. Haran and Ravi looked at each other, understanding that their journey was far from over. Together, they would continue to create, to inspire, and to teach others the lessons they had learned. Haran's workshop became a place where others could come to seek wisdom, not just about craftsmanship, but about life itself. People from all over the village, and even from nearby towns, came to share their own stories of struggle and triumph. Encouraged by the example set by father and son, Haran would listen, offer his quiet wisdom, and share Ravi's simple yet profound advice. Transform criticism into fuel, and let your work speak louder than their words. And so, the story of Haran and Ravi became a legenda tale of how the power of love, resilience, and belief could transform not only an individual, but an entire community. It was a story of redemption, of healing, and of finding one's true path amidst the noise of doubt and criticism. Here are some tips on handling criticism. 1. Understand the source. Recognize constructive criticism. Not all criticism is harmful. Some criticism can offer valuable insights that help you improve. Understand the source of the feedback, whether it's coming from a well-intentioned place or a place of ignorance or negativity. Evaluate intent. Determine whether the criticism is intended to help you grow or is just an expression of the critic's insecurities. 2. Stay calm and reflect. Pause before reacting. When receiving criticism, take a moment to process it, rather than reacting impulsively. Ask yourself if there is any truth to the feedback and how it can be used constructively. Separate emotions. Don't let criticism affect your self-esteem. Separate your personal feelings from the critique. Criticism is not a reflection of your worth, but rather a potential tool for improvement. 3. Transform negative feedback into motivation. Use criticism as fuel. Instead of letting criticism bring you down, use it as motivation to push forward. Channel the negativity into a positive force that drives you to prove doubters wrong. Set goals based on feedback. If the criticism provides a direction for improvement, set clear, actionable goals to address it. This proactive approach can help you turn weaknesses into strengths. 4. Build resilience. Develop a thick skin. Build emotional resilience by learning to handle criticism without letting it affect you personally. Remember that criticism is often more about the critic's issues than yours. Surround yourself with supportive people. Cultivate relationships with people who offer constructive feedback and support, rather than those who are overly critical or negative. 5. Learn and adapt. Reflect and improve. After receiving criticism, reflect on it to understand what you can learn and how you can improve. Use this reflection as a stepping stone for future growth. Adapt and evolve. Use criticism as a catalyst for change. Adapt your approach and strategies based on the feedback you receive, continually improving and evolving. As the story of Haran and Ravi ends, it leaves us with a powerful message: the idea that we can all turn criticism into motivation and let our actions speak louder than words. Their journey reminds us that our true strength lies in our ability to rise above negativity, to embrace challenges, and to create a life filled with purpose and inspiration. Today, ask yourself, what criticism have you allowed to weigh you down? What small, positive changes can you make to turn that criticism into fuel for your own growth and success? Embrace your inner strength. Transform doubt into determination, and let your work shine with the wisdom that only your personal journey can bring. Take a moment to reflect on the lessons from this story. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, someone who feels stuck in a cycle of self-doubt or criticism. Inspire them to believe that they too can turn their obstacles into stepping stones. Remember, it's not about silencing your critics, but rising above them, showing through your actions that you are not defined by their words. Let the story of Haran and Ravi be a reminder that the greatest victories come not from shouting down others, but from the quiet power of persistence, self-belief, and the courage to create something extraordinary from within. For more stories of hope and transformation, don't forget to subscribe and join us again for the next chapter in the journey of life. Your story is just beginning.